Hello, hi everyone. Thanks, Taylor. Dan's here behind the camera with me. I'm gonna try to run through everything pretty quick. I know it's a nice day and we all want to get outside. So, creating an herb container. The biggest challenge is picking the container. And I always say that. And so things that you want to consider is the material of the container. So a terracotta pot, for example, will dry out faster than a ceramic pot. And then if you're thinking about weight on your deck or your table or patio, there's lighter weight containers as well that are composite containers. This is a plastic, but I think it's actually pretty well done. And then this is a fiber-light material that's also lightweight. And so picking out the container is going to be the first challenge. We're also talking about summer pots. So think about if you're having an event, a party. I was kind of thinking like this is kind of cute for 4th of July. So you can get cute with different colors and everything like that. So picking the right container and then making sure the container has drainage is critical, especially for herbs. It's just important. So make sure that it has a drainage hole, and then you're ready to pick your plants. So in terms of the herbs, what I say in containers is that really it's different than in the ground, and you can get away with combinations that maybe wouldn't necessarily go together as well in the ground. You can get away with them in a container because it's a temporary thing, it's shorter term. We really want to think of the containers in 3 to 5 month spans. So herbs typically come in 2 different sort of classes, and one is more of a leafy herb like basil or parsley. And then there's more woodier herbs like sage or rosemary. So typically woodier herbs require less water than leafier herbs. So that is something to consider if you do choose a terracotta pot, for example. I would recommend doing some of the more woodier herbs in it because it does dry out and the leafier herbs aren't going to bounce back as easily as the woodier herbs, if that makes sense. But you can also combine them if you're good on your watering or you have a different type of container that you're using. And then I always like talking about companion plants. So I sent a link, a handout link for a resource handout on companion planting with your reminder email. And what I want to encourage you to do is just look at that. Really, any flowers that you plant with your edibles are beneficial and they're pretty and it adds color. So it's a way to, these will attract pollinators, they'll attract bees, butterflies, and birds. And so it's good to have them around your edibles. And then it also, like I said, adds color. So I like to combine them all together. Any questions on the plants really quick? I know I'm going through this quick, but I want to get the demonstration and then leave it open for questions.
Yeah, no questions just yet, but actually a good reminder to everyone. If you have some questions or want to throw a few topics that we can talk about near the end of the class or anything like that, let me know. Throw into the Q&A. I'll answer some of them and bring them up at the end.
Okay, Taylor, do you want to pick the pot that I'm going to plant up?
Sure. So I really like either the one that you're holding right now, because I think that's a very classic terracotta, but I also really like the low bowl strawberry planter, that green one. I think that's a really clever idea, and something that I would recommend to everyone.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one?
Yeah.
Okay. This one, to me, kind of reminds me of like, I don't know, like a pair of pants or something with like the pockets coming out. But yeah, they're really good for herbs, and it's nice because they have these different sections, so you can keep them kind of separate.
Does it have a drain hole?
It does.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
So,
So,
and a question just came in that you're probably going to go into right away. Is just what are the best herbs and flowers you can plant together?
oh yeah. Okay. First of all, let's talk about the drainage hole. So the biggest question I get asked is, if I put gravel at the bottom of a container, and I don't. What gravel can do is actually sort of dry out the roots. It creates sort of an air band, that can actually not be beneficial over time. So I use these keeper stoppers, which is just a screen that you put over the drainage. And what's nice is and I quarter them, so I have it like this. So it's like that. What's nice is that you use the entirety of the pot, so the soil is all the way through the pot, which wouldn't happen if you had the gravel on it. And then it also keeps the soil in and keeps slugs and earwigs from not coming up the bottom of the pot. So it kind of works in two different ways. So I put this screen over the pot, and then I'm just using organic potting soil. And I'm just gonna put enough in. So when I set the plants in, they're gonna be about a ½ inch below the top of whichever ram I'm looking at. Okay, and then I recommend using transplant food. We have Sure Start fertilizer. This works really good for most any plants. I recommend it in the ground in a container. And what I say is like, it's kind of like powdering a donut when you put in the fertilizer. You don't want to dump a huge pile of it, just kind of sprinkle it in. Okay. So let's pick the herbs. All right, everybody loves basil. So when you get the plants out of the pot, you just sort of squeeze the container like that, and they come out. You can massage the roots. It's a little bit more important when you're planting in the ground. I don't pay as much attention to massaging the roots in a container, but what I do is I'll pull off soil to make them fit better. Dan always loves this part.
Ouch.
Okay, and then I'm gonna put that in there. That. And parsley. So this is another pot that it's a biodegradable container. If you get these, you can either try to knock the plant out of it, or you can break the container like that and just peel it off. And then, oh, one thing about herbs is mint. This can only be by itself. It can only have its own pot. Can't be with other herb friends.
Why is that, Jen?
Because it takes over. It's super aggressive. So, and that'll happen in your garden too. So, I mean, if you have a space that you really want to fill with a bunch of mint, throw it in the ground. Otherwise, keep it in a pot, because it'll go everywhere. Okay, this is sage.
Okay, so you're pressing it in there pretty firmly, right?
Yep. And I'm gonna go back around and make sure that that everything's tucked in really well with the soil. Let's do thyme. Oh, I have parsley, sage, thyme.
Oh,
So I need
what
more.
are we missing? Rosemary?
I think we need a rosemary. Okay. Okay. We got those in. I'm gonna add a little more fertilizer.
Now, the herbs in these little pockets are gonna be able to grow into the big middle part, right?
Yeah,
The
exactly.
roots, yeah.
Mhm. It connects up. Okay, so we need rosemary. Sometimes you'll see the roots like this. That's okay. You can like sort of pull them out or pull them off if the plant seems like it needs to stretch a bit. I don't know. No. And I really wanted to, oh, maybe we should do a purple. Yeah, this is another type of basil. Purple basil. Another thing is, if you haven't joined any of my pot classes before, I don't like to wait for a container to grow in. I like it to be full to start. So I plant everything shoulder to shoulder. And when I used to do this in person, people would always say, oh my gosh, she's gonna put another plant in because it already seems full. But the thing is, it's like, who wants to wait for the pot to grow in? You know, it's like you want it to instantly look good, especially if you're having a party or whatever, or bringing it for a gift, you know. Okay, so I'm gonna add some flowers. Out of these, like I was saying, companion plants, the two most commonly used companion plants are marigold. These are marigolds and alyssum. And so marigolds help repel bad bugs, and alyssum helps attract the good bugs that eat the bad bugs. So this is kind of like a power pack, these two, a good combo. But really any other flowers you put in also would be really pretty. So I'm kind of liking the like purple tones with that leaf. This is a nemesia. And I'm gonna actually, so you can do this. And the plant's fine. Like that.
Looks like there are two different shades of nemesia in there. That's pretty cool. They're both purple and they go really nicely with the purple basil.
So also, so the nemesia is a perennial, which means it'll go year after year. And then there's annuals, which just means it's one season and then it dies. So by combining annuals into the container, you sort of take up you take up the space so it looks full, but those will die off. And the idea is that when those die off, the perennials will have grown in more. So it's going to be a consistently full pot, if that makes sense.
Okay, so that's a marigold. What's this one over here?
Oh,
that you put in?
cosmos.
Cosmos.
Yeah. See, it's just fun to add some color to it. I mean, you could do a full herb pot that's just all herbs, and that could be a nice look too. It's like, it's pretty, you know, it's just like very textural, with different greens.
The blue one is lobelia.
Lobelia. And here's the alyssum. How's it looking on that side?
Looks pretty good.
Okay.
I see one little corner there that has some
Oh, we've got tons of room, Dan.
dirt showing.
No, we have a lot of room left. There's a ton of room left. Okay. Yeah. Top dressing, I'll talk about it and then I'll show it because I don't recommend using bark in containers. I think that it seems like it just, the plants don't like it. And so I would recommend either moss or a gravel. Gravel tends to have more of a contemporary look. And then the moss is a little bit more farmhouse, I guess, or something. But it helps retain the moisture. Like with the zinnia. So see, I'm really taking off, let me see. Took off a bunch of the roots. Zinnias are good for butterflies. They like to sit on the flower and stretch their wings out. And I'm gonna add more in the back. So. One thing that I forgot to mention about the containers is that if you're growing an herb like basil and you live in San Francisco or live in Tiburon or Sausalito, you don't have a ton of heat. So by choosing a container that's dark, like a black container, like either this or like this, that will help absorb more heat. And it could actually help your plants so they perform better. Okay, how's it look?
Full.
Party pretty?
It looks great.
Okay, let's see. I'm gonna.
Yeah, when you started talking about basil, we had some questions earlier about planting basil. Someone was mentioning they were going to plant it with their blueberries in a wine barrel, and wanted to know maybe your thoughts on planting it from seed or from start, or like if they should approach it differently.
Well, I sure start it from seed, not now, but I'm an impatient gardener, so I mean, I would just say get a plant to start it. Are they easy to grow from seed?
They're easy to grow from seed once it warms up.
Yeah.
So starting about now. And since basil doesn't last forever, it's good to learn how to do it from seed so that you can do it about every 2 weeks, start a few new plants.
Oh, there you go. I would still have an actual, like if you want to do seeds, do some seeds, but then also have an actual plant just as a backup. I don't know.
Sometimes nice, you can have the one plant started or a few plants started, and then the seeds will come up, and as that one kind of fades out or you start harvesting it, the other ones will pop up. It's a nice idea.
The wine barrels are great though. I mean, you can get a ton of food out of a wine barrel. So if you don't have garden space, great alternative.
All right, you're putting moss in, right?
Yeah, I'm just putting moss around all the plants. It just kind of gives it like a finished look, and it helps retain moisture. And it looks pretty. There's different colored mosses too. So. All right.
Yeah. So it's nice. It's party ready. It'll grow in. I mean, definitely they'll grow into each other pretty quickly with it being that packed. But it's something you can just kind of adjust later on, right? You want to come back and check on these pots pretty often.
Yeah, absolutely. So this type of thing, I mean, definitely harvest the harvest the herbs. So pick the basil, pick the parsley, everything. And that'll help sort of contain the size of the herbs. But the flowers, you'll just have to sort of pinch back here and there. And then, like I said, all containers, I mean, we need to assess them every 3 to 5 months. They're really not a set it and forget it type of thing. Because they're constantly growing and it's a fixed space. So in a few months we might have to like take out lobelia or take out one of the zinnias or whatever. But then the idea is that the other plants would have grown in. So it's a consistent full look for a longer period of time. And then probably after 5 months or so, we'll just look, and we might have to take out all the flowers, reassess the herbs, and see where we need to go from there.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on your style and what you like. Jen, like you were saying before, likes to have a pretty full planter, but if you want something that is a little bit more long lasting of just herbs, or like a little bit, throw like 1 or 2 flowers in there, throw some more herbs in there if you're really going for like a lot for your kitchen or something like that. So make the pot work like with you and what you want, definitely. But if you're just going for a full color and you want some herbs on the side, then do something with full color.
I thought this was cute. I'll do this one really quick, so I know I'm running fast, but I thought this pot was cute for a little herb pot. And so I'm gonna do.
That looks right out of the 50s.
It does.
Doesn't
It's
it?
like a little, like the Jetsons.
Yeah, like Franciscan or something.
I know.
Someone was asking about planting like the softer herbs, or I think you were calling the beefier kind of more like herbaceous herbs with the more woodier herbs, or the more drought tolerant kind of herbs. Is there anything you should worry about that, or just different ways to approach it?
So I don't really think so in a container, because it's gonna dry out. You'll water it more than in the ground. What I think is more important is in the ground to really consider what you're grouping together, because that's a different sort of type of watering. But in a container, I think woodier herbs and more herbaceous herbs are okay together.
Mm-hmm. And then I do like that little blue pot that you have.
I love it. No, this is oregano.
Yeah, someone was asking, and it's something I'll probably answer a little more, is what kind of herbs do better in like the Sunset area, which is like in San Francisco. And that's a little bit by the coast, and it's kind of this spot that the Sloat store I'm at right now, the Sloat on Sloat Boulevard is. And we bring in most of the herbs that Jen's talking about, actually almost all of them. They all do pretty well here. Herbs are one of those easier ones that can kind of grow in any situation. All the rosemaries, thymes, oreganos are all quite easy to grow. And then you can definitely get in some of those parsleys and cilantros. They grow pretty quickly. Basil is one of those ones that we kind of struggle with here and there, but it's good to try it out. But yeah, don't like stop yourself when you're trying to get herbs. They're fairly easy compared to some of the other, like the tomatoes and the peppers and stuff. You have to be a little more conscious about, but go for some herbs.
Yeah, I know. The Sunset is always a little, I mean, the basil in the Sunset is near impossible. So just, if it doesn't work, it's not you, it's the weather. So, I mean, I think this is sweet, just all green without any flowers,
Yeah.
Don't have to have flowers. So
Okay.
this is stevia. This is lemon verbena, which is, can you smell it? It's so strong.
Mhm.
And then the oregano here.
Yeah, well, between the lemon verbena and the stevia, you've got some
Tea.
sweet lemon tea ready to
know.
go there
Yeah,
without any sugar.
it's true. And it's super fragrant. So, I mean, you can, just doing a little pot like this can be really sweet.
I had some people asking about different kind of watering methods, and someone was mentioning is misting an okay way of watering, as well as just like maybe some of your thoughts on how to water a planter like this, and some things to either avoid or to look towards.
Well, I wouldn't recommend misting, not for something like this, because it's really better just to water the soil as much as possible. And the mist, especially if you're like in the Sunset, for example, that can facilitate molds on the leaves. If you have more moisture on the leaves, it can facilitate mold and fungus. And so I would just say water the soil if you can.
Yeah, I agree. And if you have houseplants and stuff, I like misting my houseplants, but herbs and most outdoor plants, I think watering soil is your best way of actually watering them. And you want to do a thorough watering when you do water them, and then let them dry out a little bit in between watering. You don't want to just cover water every day. You kind of want to assess the soil always.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, misting can be good for some plants, just not these types. And when you do okay, I will say something about saucers. I know this has an attached saucer, but in general, I am anti-saucer because the water really needs to go through the pot. It really needs to flush through the pot. And if it's sitting in a saucer of water, it's just like the plants just have their feet wet constantly. So it cannot be good for them. And so if you have to have a saucer because of, downstairs neighbor or something that you can have the saucer, but just set the pot up inside the saucer. So you can still get that drainage through the container, because if it's sitting in water, it's not good.
Yeah, we actually had a couple watering questions come in pretty fast as we started talking about it. And many people are, asking how often should you water, and especially like talking about these ones you have in front of you, and then maybe just the idea of watering in general. Like, what's your timelines you go for?
One, it depends on the size of the pot. This is going to be smaller, so this probably will need a little bit more water than like a wine barrel. And it also depends on your weather. I mean, is it windy? Is it more sunny and things like that? So it's hard to say across the line what watering should be for everyone. But I would say in general, 3 times a week is a reasonable assumption. And
for herb planters especially. Yeah. I'd say for herb planters especially, like that 3 times a week gives you that, like, okay, it's not a once a week kind of thing, but probably not every day. You kind of need to find the balance.
Right. And they don't, in terms of bugs and stuff like that, I mean, you might get some aphids here and there. I would just spray them off with water. I mean, this is not going to be a really big deal in terms of bugs, I don't think. So just watch it, stay on top of it. If you do see an aphid or whatever, just spray it off. But other than that, yeah.
Always look at your new growth and your buds and your newest leaves. That's where your aphids or any of your little pests are going to be. So the first place to look. I had someone asking earlier about holes in their leaves, and that's most likely from caterpillars or cabbage moths, or sometimes slugs. And that can affect these too, and either picking them off, or we have some sprays in the store that are safe to use, but we'll get rid of those pests too if you want some help with it.
Yeah, I don't spray anything. So, and the thing that I learned about caterpillars, or Dan and I learned with Doug telling me, is really caterpillars are the foundation of the entire food system for the planet. And so they feed, 12 of the most popular birds or something like that. I mean, it starts trickling down. So I look at caterpillars way differently now than I did before we did that class. And they're, they're food for something, basically. So you don't have to keep spraying everything.
We were talking about bugs. Someone was asking, is there any flowers that repel aphids? And it's kind of a tricky question to completely answer. You were mentioning marigolds earlier as one thing that can kind of help deter. People sometimes cite that nasturtiums will attract the bugs away from your other plants, is what I've always heard. But not really a way to completely resist them.
A planter like this one that Jen did, you can kind of imagine would be very confusing for bugs. Most of them want one kind of plant. And when you have a whole bunch of different ones and different smells like this, they're going to pass right by and find something that they recognize better.
Yeah.
So all of this diversity is really helpful, really, for deterring the bugs.
Yeah, I think biodiversity in general is a really good approach to a lot of gardening.
Yeah, absolutely. I did, like I said, check out in the resource handout, check out the companion planting handout that I sent in that, because it's really cool to sort of see the different interactions that certain plants can have, and kind of think about that when you do your combinations.
Yeah, I had, it's always something that kind of comes up when we talk about herbs. Some people ask me about growing herbs indoors. I know there's lots of different approaches to it. I generally recommend against it. But if you want to try it, just make sure you are really on top of the bugs. And do you have any idea of like what you think about herbs indoors, Jen?
I mean, you can try basil in a sunny window in the sunset. No, I mean, yeah, I think they do better outdoors in general, but I've seen, you know, you can try it. It's not gonna last for years and years. But you could probably grow it long enough to cook a couple meals or something, you know. And they can be like, you know, just cute little accents. So if you're able to just look at it as sort of a temporary thing, then just try it, you know. If they need sun, they definitely will need sun.
Yeah. I could probably go through a little bit more questions. We're kind of running up our time right here. Do you want to plant any more, or would you like me to just go through some more questions?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to take a couple more.
Someone was asking about edible flowers and companion planting with those, or just maybe some of your recommendations for edible flowers.
That's a good question. So there are edible flowers. I didn't bring any.
Marigolds.
Oh, the marigolds. Yeah, you can eat the marigolds. So yes, that, and then we were talking about the nasturtiums. Those are obviously edible. Violas and
Snapdragons.
snapdragons.
Snapdragons are edible, really?
Yeah, a really strange flavor, but they're
Spicy, right? Or
they're
tangy or
they're
something?
weird.
Yeah, they're weird.
Yeah,
But you can put them in a salad, or
they look really nice.
yeah, they look pretty.
You have one right next to you. Someone was asking a little bit about lavender, and if you have any recommendations for maybe what lavender to look towards. We actually have a lot of lavenders in our stores right now, and they're going to be on sale during our sale. So definitely come check them out.
Well, I think the only edible one is this type, or can you eat all of them? I'm not sure.
You can eat any of them. The English lavenders are usually used in cooking
Yeah,
because they have a sweeter flavor.
I think they're more
Fragrance, I would say.
a perfume to them too.
Mhm,
So they're
mhm.
yeah.
But then the French lavenders are usually used for like sachets and that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
So they're very fragrant too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. If you want some lavenders, come into our stores. We are full of lavender at the moment. They're a great plant.
Drought tolerant.
And there are
Very
some newer, more compact ones that probably would be better for containers. So
True.
look for those for containers. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can start them out small. I mean, this is a 4-inch versus, you know, a bigger gallon or whatever. Yeah, it's a great plant.
And then just a quick question about trimming. And I think it's kind of interesting to talk about trimming flowers for deadheading, but also how do you kind of harvest your herbs as you get them?
How do I harvest my herbs?
Yeah.
Well, with the basil, I mean, you can take off, you know, you can pinch off like a chunk of leaves like this. And add it to your caprese salad or whatever you're making. And then the thyme, the same thing. I mean, I would just sort of pick off, you know, a little bit, however much you're gonna need. I mean, everything just kind of is like that. The herbs are different than like, you know, if we were growing lettuce or something, we would prune it different. But you know, if you need a little bit of rosemary, then you just take that off. You just do that.
And just as you're trimming them or harvesting them, think about, you know, wherever you're pinching it off, you're going to get growth points from right below that. So you'll get bushier plants. It's actually a great process for plants to do some pruning. So you're pruning and you're harvesting at the same time. Works out great.
Yeah, and it helps them. Yeah, exactly. It helps them grow too. So, and then everything with flowers, the more you deadhead the flowers, the more they're going to produce flowers. So it's important to take off the dead flowers.
And
Well,
then, yeah, I think we're pretty much there. I was gonna thing I was going to ask you is, do you fertilize these containers? Is that a good process for?
Thank you, sorry. I did. I recommend liquid fertilizer for all containers. I think it's just, because it's a fixed small space, I just feel like it's better if the plants absorb the fertilizer faster, and that's what happens with liquid. And so I really like either these, the Fox Farm or the Tappan Roots. They're both super great fertilizers for liquid. And like all fertilizing, it's best to water first like you normally would, and then water with the fertilizer solution. It'll absorb more that way. And the liquid fertilizers, typically you can use every 2 to 3 weeks or so. Just look at the recommendation on the bottle. And yeah, I just say I would recommend liquid. We do have sort of like a tomato veggie food that if you wanted to use a powder form, that I would just say that's fine, or just like an all-purpose would be good too. And the reason why I'm doing, I mean, these are more for just growing. This isn't as much encouraging flower is all the herbs. We don't really want to encourage to flower. We just want to encourage them to grow. So that's why I would recommend those anyway.
So in case it's not obvious from the picture, the Fox Farm is called Grow Big, and the Tappan Roots is called Essential Grow.